What's your professional obituary say about you? So I am finishing up, and I've had a nice run in the leadership uh, board and leadership roles of EDPA, but I'm in the final 6 months of as president of EDPA. So the executive director, Dasher Lowe, reached out to me recently, and he said, "I need you to write your own eulogy as president." We ask all presidents to do that, but it's a couple of sentences that just when people look back and read our past presidents, what you feel you brought that was most valuable to the EDPA in your time here. So you go, wow, I feel like um, I could. There's a lot of things you could say, but what do you want to be remembered for? And it started me thinking about. Well, everybody I know that works in our industry is so passionate, so committed. It's such a big part of who they are. What's that Disney executive that said, our what defines our who? And so, but do we just want it to be job related, Khalil? Or there's a ton of professionals in this industry that are 60 and above that are beginning to retire and tap out. And I think, at a certain age, you start going, what do I want to be remembered for or as contributing? So, and I don't think you have to wait to that age to start. So that's the lesson for a lot of our future leaders and our younger listeners. And that is, the way I look at this, Khalil, is if each one of us is the main character in our own movie, right? If you're still writing your storyline, so
Mhm.
if you had an opportunity to sort of reverse engineer the happy ending of your movie, what scenes or episodes would you go back and put in to make sure we all know who you are or we remember you for all those wonderful things
Mhm.
that I'm sure your family knows about you, right? But maybe not all
Yeah.
your professional colleagues. So, or am I overreaching? Right? I don't know.
Well, I think a couple things. One, main characters are always flawed in a story, any story, right? They always have some shortcoming that they've got to overcome. Story Brand by Donald Miller is a great book that helps you kind of understand
Yeah.
that every story has the same exact 7 elements. There's a character who has a problem
Yeah.
or an opportunity maybe,
Yeah.
and then they meet a guide who gives them a plan and calls them to action to avoid failure and to be transformed.
Hey,
Every story has the same 7 elements. It's the same exact thing. So if you see yourself as that main character,
right.
you've got a problem or an opportunity. So there's flaws. The problem could be that you're, I don't know, for some reason the movie with Will Smith, where he's like a superhero, is coming to mind, where he's like
Hancock.
got super strength and
Hancock.
Hancock.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love that movie.
He's super strength, all this stuff, but he's a drunk, right? And that's his main flaw. But he can still be the hero, right? And heroes are flawed. So I think the reality is, if that's the case, you're thinking about yourself as the main character, you're going to have flaws, but people don't. You've just got to overcome those flaws. And also, it's the last thing that characters do that we remember. It's the end of the story where they save the day that we remember. So if you're 65 and about to retire and you feel like you haven't done enough in your professional life, it's not the past that actually matters. It's the last thing that you do that matters the most, right? And if you feel like you've been super successful and you've done it all, well, it's the most recent thing that actually matters, not all that stuff in the background. Um, and like you said, if you're younger, you still have the opportunity to write your story quite a bit. Like it's not, you don't have to, you've still got time to fix those things, and you can backwards design it where like, I want to be at this is what I want my obituary to be. How can I get to that point? What are the steps I need to get there? Which is kind of, I think, what you're basically thinking about a little bit with your professional obituary. So where are you at in your process?
So I find myself, so I have a couple months to get it done, but you find yourself reflecting on the things that you've done that maybe you think are meaningful for this community
Mm-hmm.
that I've been leading and been in service to. But you know, there's been a couple. This is totally unscripted, so um, I hope she gets to hear this. But there's a gentleman who owned an exhibit house, um, in a secondary market. He was in Ohio. The company was called Queen Exhibits. Walt Queen was the founder and owner. He and his wife Cheryl owned it and ran it. I want to say 20 or 24 employees. Walt passed away very suddenly a few months ago.
Mm.
It's just devastating to the obviously to his family and his wife, the people that work there. But what's come out of it for a lot of people, because we spoke and honored him at the EDPA's recent meeting. I just read something in Exhibit City News about him. But what came out, and this is the eulogy, right? It's what an amazing man he was. Um, it was the stories that were told was Walt figured when he owned his own business, he'd finally get a Ferrari or a Lamborghini, right?
Mm.
Well, once he became an owner, he didn't just want one; he wanted one for every employee, right? He was
Mm.
that guy. Um, his last night on this earth, unbeknownst to him, was spent with his grandson painting the warehouse floors at his warehouse. He, it was like many entrepreneurs, it's a labor of love, right? But to do it with with a child or a grandchild, that's its own joy there. He was all in for that. His employees knew he was all in for them.